Okay, so now let's have a look at positions. Positions are listed on the left here. There's data on the spot market, and there's also data on some of the biggest Bitcoin exchange spots. On the right here, we have futures info. We're talking BitMEX, and so here we can also see the traded volume. And here we can see the difference between buys and sells. So on 7070 at 1148, 1400 Bitcoins were sold. And 202 more Bitcoins were purchased. So that's 202 more Bitcoins. Same here. 243 more long ones. So this way we can see the long-short dynamics here. When none of the buttons here selected, the positions we see are displayed according to the current rate. So here we can see it go up, then down, then up again, and so we can see it all here. There was a drop, then it rose up again. All right, now let's talk about the cluster mode for a while. Okay, so if, for example, we have a flat over some period and we see some activity here and here, or here, all of that is represented in this value right there. So we can actually see how much Bitcoins were sold and at what level. And so at the bottom here, we can see that there were some purchases made at the spot market at 7020 and 7030 when we were here somewhere. As for futures, we see that quite a few people sold a few thousand Bitcoins. And basically, it put those short ones in the red. And so these positions have modes. This whole thing, by the way, depends on the rate's volatility. So this data we have here really depends on volatility. The lower it is, the longer the tail. Similarly, the higher volatility makes for a shorter tail, because we only need a small chunk of data to make a decision. Positions can be filtered according to the last signal received. So we see our last signal at 11:53, and if we press this button here, we will only see that what was happening here since that time. Who bought, who sold, and we have this big button here, which shows us data over a longer period of time with bigger clusters. 100 Bitcoins each. So we can see what was happening all the way from this drop point here. So it's like at 6,600, 6,400, and 65, we see quite a few short terms at the spot market. And they all got stuck there. And that happened because the market maker always goes against the majority. So how do we see that a market maker is about to make a move? The market maker moves the price down until they see counter purchases. As soon as counter purchases disappear and people start to sell, the market maker turns around and goes against the oncoming traffic. We see here that at 6600 we had sales delta of 3000 and the value of 5100. And because that's a lot of value relative to the delta, this volume is rather high. At 6500 it dropped. So sales volume decreased, although the delta remained the same. And the sales volume dropped quite a bit. And so then at 6400 the volume dropped even more, about 5 times down. Although the delta at that point was around 50%. So this entire value is almost 50% sales. Those are the people who were prepared to go down. There were no counter purchases made at that point. And when that happens, when the value decreases and the delta goes up, we can see that the market maker is not interested in going any further down or up, and they turn the rate around and start moving it against the crowd. All right, so what else? So I guess I'll make another video on how to read this data here and how to work with all that. Now, about the smart button. So let's have a look at the graph. We see it go up here and then down there and then up again. And so when we press the smart button, this piece gets removed. So that we can only see the latest movements and notice the market maker's interest, whether there was any loss of interest or not.